Hello, everybody. Today, I thought we would talk a little bit about speed, specifically, like where does speed in shooting come from? How do you develop it in a law enforcement program, whether it's existing cops or new recruits? How do we develop speed without completely disregarding accuracy? Where does speed come from? Do we just train the fundamentals and kind of hope it shows up, or do we push it? Do we talk about it? What do we do? Where I work, and specifically me as an instructor, I go out of my way to avoid using words like fast and slow. I don't like them because they're very nonspecific. They're really ambiguous in that if I watch a shooter shoot and it was slow and I tell them, hey, I want you to speed up, that means something completely different to them than it does to me. Or if I were to talk to a group of 3 or 4 students and it's like, hey, now let's just like do the same thing but speed it up, it's going to mean something different to all 3 or 4 of them. And it's going to be received differently by each of them versus what I intended. The other problem I have with fast and slow is because it's really ambiguous and non-specific, it doesn't get applied to a specific point in the shooting process or a few specific places over a drill or a stage or whatever. It tends to just get applied broadly through all of it. What I mean by that is if they go through and they shoot a drill and it was okay, but it's like I'd like to see them be a little more aggressive, and I just say, hey, shoot faster, they just hit fast forward on the whole shooting process. They're going to try to speed up the draw. They're going to try to speed up like their visual acquisition on the target. They're going to try to speed up how fast they pull the trigger. They're going to try to speed up how quickly they transition the gun. They're going to try to speed up how fast they move. They're going to try to speed up their reloads. They're going to try to continue to speed up how fast they pull the trigger. And what ends up happening is like we round corners off of things like picking out small spots on a target, the transitions, like all those things tend to deteriorate. The result is worse, not better. And because it was very non-specific, they just try to do everything faster, and that almost never works. So rather than just say something like, "Hey, go faster, bro," or "Hey, I want you to slow down," because the exact opposite happens. Everything slows down, which is not what we wanted. Um, we I try to use very specific language. A good example and probably the easiest one to get to is like when we talk about sight confirmation. We build speed as a byproduct of the process as opposed to pursuing speed for speed's sake or as a stated objective. So what I mean by that is, like, regardless of whether it's a recruit or an existing cop, they're all familiar with the stop stable sighting system. So whether it's a stop static dot or equal height, equal light irons, before they pull the trigger, they understand they're very comfortable with like, yep, I want that to be stopped. I want it to be in the center of the place that I want the bullets to go, and then I pull the trigger. So then instead of telling them, hey, just shoot faster or pull the trigger faster, we talk about seeing a little bit less out of our sights or reacting a little sooner to our sights. So to go from a static stop dot or stop front sight to like a bouncing ball, we would just say, hey, I want you to react to it the moment that it touches the place that you're looking at. So we've condensed the amount of time that the dot is stopped and have them reacting to their their sights sooner, which as a byproduct means that they will be shooting faster. The split times between their shots is shorter, but I never even had to tell them to shoot faster. I simply told them I wanted to react to their sight in a different way, and the reaction causes them to shoot sooner, which leads to faster shot times. Likewise, when we go from bouncing ball to flash of color, we're reacting to even less information. We're reacting sooner to what we see. The split times increase, but I never had to say speed up. Likewise, if I need a shooter to slow down because their hits are not good, later in the program, like early when we're exploring, I don't worry so much about this, but later in the program when we're doing metrics or we're running stages and the hits aren't great, I would do the exact same thing. Rather than just say slow down, I might tell them, hey, what confirmation were you using on this 15-yard target where we didn't get the hits we wanted? And they'd be like, oh, maybe I was using flash of colors. Like, all right. So on the next run, I want you to think about what you need to see in order to guarantee hits. They're like, no, I think I can do a bouncing ball. So now they are specifically looking for a bouncing ball when they get to that position, and they're reacting to the dot with a bouncing ball. Sorry, they're reacting to their sights at like a bouncing ball pace while they're visually connected to the target. And while they do slow down a little bit, not everything slows down. It's just the pace of shooting, but it's not even about what they hear. It's about reacting to what they see. So we talk about speed in terms of the process. It's like a visual thing as far as the pacing of the shooting. And we never even have to talk about going faster, going slower. What does that mean? We talk about words, or we use words and talk about speed in terms of what the process is visually. And that tends to work a lot better. It also gives us a common language to talk about instead of kind of these really iffy open gray area words like faster, slower. You just they don't tend to land very well, or very similar with everybody. Another way that we can kind of build up speed is to make sure that the shooter has a good understanding of hit factor scoring, and they don't have to understand it from like a gamer's standpoint of this is a high hit factor stage or a low hit factor stage. I don't mean that at all. I simply mean understanding the mathematical teeter totter of if I go a little quicker, but maybe I'm not quite as accurate. But if I kind of work that razor's edge right there, that's going to give me my best result, as opposed to being absolutely dead nuts accurate, but my time doubles, or I half my time and my accuracy just goes to garbage. Like they kind of understand that teeter totter and how it works. Then you see them start to really pursue that performance curve individually on where it works for each individual shooter. A really good way to explore this with them, and this is the way that we do it where I work, is we talk about hit factor shooting or hit factor scoring, explain what it is. I talk about how it's kinetic energy delivered to the target so that they understand the relevance, not just the game piece, but the relevance to kind of real world application. And then I demonstrate it for them. So I'll set up a target at 7 yards because we shoot bill drills as metrics, and I'll demonstrate a 3-second bill drill. Hey, this is a stopped, stable dot. Dot stops every time, deliberate trigger pull. This is a 3.5 second bill drill. Here's what the score is. Then I'll shoot one in about 2-ish seconds that's got like two Charlies. And we do the hit factor, and they understand, like, oh, when it's only 3 seconds, if it's 1/3 faster. So if I knock a whole second off, but I give up a couple of points, they see how the hit factor changes. And even though it's not quite as accurate, it's better. And then I might do a really wild example where maybe I'm not even connected to my dot. It's all just kind of like physical index, like kind of gun in the center of the target, and I'm pulling the trigger as fast as I can. Maybe I've got a delta, but the times are like 1.6, 1.7s. And now we understand, like, okay, this is dramatically faster, but the points really fell off. Like, where's the best application of speed and points on this curve? And now they've seen it. So now they understand it mathematically. Now they've seen it. And then what we do is we let them run bill drills. And what I'll do is I'll have them run it with the confirmations that I ask for. So I might tell them, like, hey, I want you to draw and I want you to shoot a stop stable dot on this one. Every round, the dot stopped static before you pull the trigger. Most of them are going to get all A's. It'll be relatively slow. Then I'll say, hey, let's do a bouncing ball. And most of them can still hold A's. Maybe they got a C in there, but the time is dramatically faster. Hey, let's shoot a flash of color. Now they kind of get like, okay, this, like, I'm getting to the point where like I'm throwing some C's, but the time is really down. So is this still better for me? Then I might tell them, like, hey, I want as fast as you can go. We're just gonna kind of index the gun in the center of the target so you can experience what that feels like. Pulling the trigger as fast as you can. What were the points like? Did you have any misses? So then now they've lived this this speed accuracy curve, and they're really starting to understand where the performance falls off for them. And then we just have them pick the confirmation type that works best for them, and we explore with that for a little while. Give them room to fail. Don't care which target looks like. I want you to figure out where the best performance curve for you is. They work it for a little while. Then we run a build drill metric, and we see what the scores are. And then we'll run the build drill metric several times throughout the program and kind of see how it improves. But now they understand speed from a mathematical standpoint because they understand hit factor scoring from a like cognitive standpoint. They've seen it and now they've lived it. So when we talk about going faster, they understand that it's not just about the speed piece. It has to be the speed and the accuracy together, because overweighting one or the other doesn't yield a result that is worthwhile for them. The another place that will pursue speed is like in the efficiency of the non-shooting stuff. For example, we also shoot build drill rundown as a metric. So for those that aren't familiar, build drill rundown, you start at the 25-yard line, you draw, you shoot 6 rounds on a target, then you immediately run to the 10-yard line, shoot 6 more rounds on the target. You then run from 10 to 5 while doing a reload on the way and shoot 6 more rounds on the target. Same target, 18 rounds total. The whole thing is scored as one string total time, scored by hit factor. Oftentimes, what I'll see is at 25 yards, their draw time is double or triple what it would be for a 7-yard build drill. Same task, draw, fire 6 rounds on the target. One, they're standing at 7 yards, the other is standing at 25 yards. For whatever reason, getting further away from the target tends to slow that draw time down to like 3 to 5 business days. So now we'll talk. So then once I see that, we'll kind of stop for a moment. We'll talk about our gun handling piece and how and whether or not the target being further away should change how fast our draw happens. And we talk about things like the draw is free time, whether the target's at 1 feet or 100 yards, I can still rip the gun out of the holster in about a second. And then I have extra time to aim and, given the task, as opposed to taking all the extra time to draw. And then I've got to shoot faster in order to keep the times similar. So we talk about doing things sooner so that I don't have to shoot faster. Reloads would be another example, right? If I can reload quicker, then I can have the gun ready sooner. I don't have to shoot faster. We'll talk about it in terms of having the gun up and ready when I arrive. Going back to the build drill rundown example, once you shoot your 25 or your 6 rounds at the 25-yard line and you run up to the 10, is it faster and better to arrive at the 10-yard line, stop, get my feet set, then build my grip, bring the gun up and begin to aim before I start shooting? Or would it be better to start building my grip, getting the gun up in front of my face, visually connecting to the target, all while my feet are chopping and I'm kind of sitting down low to slow myself down, spreading out, and getting myself settled as I'm already aiming, so that as soon as the dot tells me I'm ready to shoot, I can start shooting again? Well, obviously the second one is better. So we talk about that in terms of gun handling and the non-shooting stuff. If I can combine those tasks together to allow me to begin to shoot sooner, my overall time goes down, and it also makes the shooting part easier, because now I don't even have to shoot faster in order to bring the overall time down, because I'm doing the non-shooting stuff sooner. I'm able to start shooting sooner. So we tend to build speed in a few different ways like that without really ever talking about going faster or going slower or pursuing speed as a stated objective. The way we do it with the process oriented approach is we kind of back them into going faster without even realizing it. And then once we've laid the foundation, then we can kind of talk about it in terms of, hey, do we want to be, do we want to be faster? How do we bring our overall time down? Where would we pick specific places in our processes to try to do things quicker or sooner in order to bring the overall time down, which would result in a faster time, a faster score, whatever. So that tends to be the way that we build speed, in terms of it's a process approach as opposed to I just want you to go faster, bro. Because again, that overarching broad gray area approach just tends to end up in like pushing fast forward on the whole shooting experience, the whole shooting process, and it doesn't yield great results in my experience. So anyway, guys, I hope that helps. If you got any other questions or other topics you want covered, throw them down below. Take care.